Danny, is it?
Hi.
How you doing?
Right, good, thanks.
Chris,
Good.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Spot training?
Yeah, I've just been playing about in some of the benches around about.
I'm gonna get my phone, sorry, 2 seconds. I'm not getting bored, I'm gonna film you. Whoa.
How's that bike for tricks?
Yeah, it's not the best.
No.
It's the bike, it's not me, obviously. Oh.
So it's amazing how the videos tell lies, you know? I didn't really think I'd be able to do this first time, but no.
Oh, yes.
So how long have you been riding track?
Since I was about 14. You fancy a shot out, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've
Get
never
your bike in
been
there if
on
you
one in
want.
my life, so it'd be something
You'll be alright.
different.
I think you'll be alright. If you can ride over these things here, you'll be alright on the track. Hey guys, how you doing? Getting some lycra?
Can't wait. Have you seen these legs?
Let's do it.
The pistons, you know?
What do you think then?
Pretty amazing. They're a lot bigger when you're stood in the centre of them. It can't be bad having a stadium named after you. How's that?
What are you going to get? The Danny MacAskill?
I'll be lucky if I get anything, to be honest, I think.
I don't know about that.
Leaning on a tombstone, scratching in the dirt, hatching plans together, my fingers have been burned.
You start off on the blue, and then once you're settled, it's just the black line, riding on the black line, through the bend, and just feeling the fact that you don't really have to steer, you just let the bike follow the track naturally.
What do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm very jealous actually. It looks interesting. The bit at the side I like the deltoid deflector.
It's some kind of laser beam.
It looks like, you know, the Oompa Loompas in
What are you talking
Willy
about?
Wonka, that's what it looks like. Right, so make sure you get your feet as far forward as you can in the straps and do it really tight, literally as tight as you can. Okay, so we'll just roll off.
Okay.
We'll just get used to the way the bike is feeling.
This is pretty crazy.
Just lay down just next to it. So just get the feeling of what it's like.
Yeah, it feels good.
We're going to pick up the speed a little bit more.
Yeah.
In one last time, we're going to go for the top of the track and then swoop down to gain some speed. Push, push, push. Keep going, faster. That's good. I get a bit of a nervousness when I hear that sound because that's what you hear when you line up on the track for the keirin.
Oh yeah.
It says, okay, Danny's underway, turn 3, turn 4, get ready, and then so when you hear that noise you get a bit of adrenaline. Just do a full lap, right back to your finishing when you start
like
from.
as fast as I can.
As fast as you can, just smash it. 3, 2, 1, go! Go on, push, 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 push. On Danny! All the way, keep pedaling. 21.6 seconds for a lap.
Oh.
Best guys in the world are only going about 4.5 seconds quicker.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Just asking what you did in 2 years' time. Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I think
Fancy
so.
it?
I think I'm going to switch career.
Yeah, get the legs shaved. That's probably 4.5 seconds straight away. Good job. Well done.
Cheers, thanks very much.
Awesome. Really good.
That was amazing.
Whoa.